you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Welcome to the Changemakers Revolution, impacting change in the world, female entrepreneurs' viewpoint. Today's presentation is the first installment of a series of virtual track sessions for the IEEE Women in Engineering International Leadership Conference. The entire virtual track will be taking place on Wednesdays. So we've branded the series with the hashtag WeWednesday, and I am going to spell that for you. That's hashtag WIE and the word Wednesday. So hashtag WIEWEDNESDAY. So to participate in today's session or to ask a question of JJ or myself, please join the conversation on Twitter. Send your question using that hashtag I just gave you, hashtag WeWednesday, WIE Wednesday, and we will get to as many of those questions as possible during the Q&A, which is in the last 15 minutes of our session today. I also want to let everybody out there know that immediately following our discussion today, there will be a Twitter chat, and that will be at 2 p.m. Eastern or 11 a.m. Pacific. Today's Twitter chat will give you the opportunity to discuss your thoughts and personal experiences related to our topic today. So keep the conversation going and use the hashtag WeWednesday, that's WIE Wednesday, and there's a handle for you as well, @WIEILC. Again, that's the @WIEILC. So with that, we are going to kick off today with a brief introduction. JJ and I will each introduce ourselves, and then we'll dive in. So my name is Kim Cruz. I am with the Center for Integrative Leading, centerforintegrativeleading.com. And, what's, I think, important to our session today, we're talking to women in technology and engineers, is how did we evolve to become entrepreneurs ourselves? I spent 27 years in corporate America in corporate positions in technology, both in leadership and executive roles throughout my career. And what's important is, in my journey is how it evolved into being an entrepreneurial role. And what I really found in my career was this desire to serve more and to serve on a greater level, especially as I was experiencing leadership in technology and the opportunities that I saw that I could affect at a broader scale outside of working for one company. So we'll talk about that a little bit more as we dive into questions later and we dive into some of our topics. But there is so much great opportunity both in entrepreneurial roles as well as in our own jobs and companies, bringing that entrepreneurial spirit and innovation into our own roles. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to JJ to introduce herself.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you all for making time to join us today. We are very excited to spend the next hour with you. I'm JJ DiGeronimo. I'm the president of Tech Savvy Women. I also have spent the last 2.5 decades in high tech. Most of those roles have been in Silicon Valley-based startups where I believe entrepreneurship is critical, a critical part of getting new products off the ground. As I moved through my career, I started a women's group because I thought it was very difficult to maneuver the organizational chart alone. And I really needed help figuring out how to get sponsors and really identify ways to make my work known. And through those opportunities, I identified several gaps for professional women. And not only did I struggle when I started to build a family and try to keep everything going from a global job, traveling all the time, and then continuing to build my brand, but also as I moved through to manager, director, and beyond. And both of those initiatives, I leaned on many people in my network, and many of my findings I've put into 2 books to help other professional women really maneuver the professional landscape. And I'm looking forward to sharing some of those techniques and some of the opportunities that I've encountered growing my business over the last few years. So with that, Kim, I'd love to tee it off with you. I think for many of us in this type of high pressure environments, leadership and women is getting so much play in the marketplace right now. So I'd love to toss it over to you to really talk about how that unfolded in your career.
Thank you, JJ. Leadership challenges, and this was one of the Twitter poll results that we got back from all of you that you're interested in. Leadership challenges are really top of mind for so many executives right now. And I've been doing some research recently and just read the new report that came out from Gallup's State of the American Workplace report. And one of the top challenges that people are facing, whether they're men or women, so let's take this up a little bit, a higher level right now, is engagement. 33% of people in the workplace are engaged. So let's take the other side of that number of the sheer number of people who are either disengaged, which is 51%, at some level they're disengaging, or 14% aren't engaged at all when they go to the office. From a leadership perspective, what's that tell us? And as women leaders, what's that tell us about our evolution? First of all, it tells us that we really want to be rethinking the opportunities and possibilities of how we lead. If people are disengaged, something is not working. And I looked at the numbers, and those numbers haven't changed for over 20 years. So what isn't working, and what about our leadership can we change? And that's really where I focus my own work, is what are the opportunities and possibilities, not only inside of change in organizations, but in our leaders, how we elevate and evolve as leaders to become more effective in not only engaging people and leading people, but in leading change. This is a time of extraordinary change. And I'm pretty confident that every generation, as long as time has been known, has said that. But if we really look at the amazing change that's happening, not only in technology, the speed of which we need to keep up with in technology, but also our own growth, the expectations of new people leaving the marketplace and how different that is of people who are more mature in their careers, there are tremendous challenges with engagement and learning how to lead engagement. So what would you add to that, JJ?
I think those are excellent points. And, with my work of advancing professional women in the workplace, I'll take the spin of the woman, because what I'm seeing through the research for my current book, Accelerate Your Impact, is that women oftentimes are interested in increasing their level of impact and influence, but oftentimes they're waiting until they're 100 to 120% prepared. And there's an article in the Harvard Business Review by Sophia Moore that talks about, are women waiting too long? And I think for many of us women, we have been taught along the way that we have to have all our T's crossed and I's dotted. And oftentimes, we aren't applying when the opportunity presents ourselves. And I actually start my book off talking about a TEDx study where they invited 10 men and 10 women. And 9 of the 10 men presented at TEDx, and only 1 of the 10 women presented at TEDx. And I think for many of us women, we introduce self-imposed boundaries. And I work with a lot of diversity and inclusion teams to help women identify sort of where are they putting these barriers up for themselves, and how do we leverage both men and women to sort of pull them through. And so I encourage a lot of women on the phone today and on the WebEx to be thinking about, what are things that I want to do, and am I waiting to be 100% qualified? Because for many of us, when we wait till we're 100% qualified, it doesn't become an opportunity where we can learn and grow at the pace that we desire. And by doing that, we're actually stifling ourselves. And from the book, The Confidence Code, they talk a lot about women take less risk than men. So as you're thinking about leadership today and how much it's needed in the workplace, really thinking about, are you raising your hand? Are you letting other people know in your organization, in your industry, where you want to have additional impact in 2017? So I'm sure, Kim, we could talk about this for a long time, but I'd like to move on to the next Twitter poll. The next biggest thing for women, which is absolutely no surprise, I'm sure both of us hear this quite often, is balance work and life. And so, Kim, how have you been able to start a business and maintain revenue streams, meet your customer needs, and still keep everything going on both at home and in your life as a whole?
This is a great question, and it comes up with absolutely everybody, right, JJ? We see this question from everybody. I'm going to give you a perspective on work-life balance that may be unique. What I recognized in my career, and again, I spent 27 years in corporate America, and at the time I left corporate, I was in an executive role. I was a CIO of a company. And we all know that there's so much to balance. We all have our commitments at work, outside of work, things that we're doing either on boards or volunteering or speaking. Where I really noticed that my work-life balance shifted was when my work became more of a calling for myself. So I was in a job, young in my career. I have different reasons while I'm showing up, and I think we all go through these evolutions. Then my career became more of a career. I was aspiring to something. I had desires. I had goals. I had a vision. And then I evolved into a calling. And what that really meant for me was I started to become truer to myself and truer to how I was showing up. And to hook into what JJ just said about how we show up as women in leadership roles, I started sharing my voice more. Whereas earlier in my career, I may have been more driven by fear and not speaking my voice because I was afraid of what my boss would think, or what will my team think, or will I say something that's contrarian or something people won't agree with. As I matured in my career, I just stopped worrying about that. And what I've learned is I trust we all have discernment. We know when to bring something up in person or in a group. But when I started really sharing my voice and being really true to myself and asking myself, what is the value I uniquely add? Because we all do. Really stepping into that, I really noticed that my perspective on balance changed. And that was because I was making my own choices about how I showed up. And then I started making better choices about where I was in that moment. In that moment, was I really feeling the need to leave work for a while and go on a walk? Or did I need to leave work that day a little bit early and tend to some of my own personal commitments? And I started becoming a lot more confident and comfortable in my own choices in the moment. And I saw Richard Branson had a quote about this, and I don't remember the quote right now, but he really talks about work-life balance becomes a non-issue when you're really moving into owning your choices. And for me, that's where it changed, is I started owning my own choices about where am I spending my time right now? How am I choosing to be in this moment? Am I present, or am I wishing I was somewhere else? And not shoulding myself about I should do this if I was a good mom, or if I was a good this or that. Not shoulding myself, but actually being very present. That drastically changed for me. So for me, work-life balance is a mindset, and it's about getting disciplined. How about you, JJ? Unmute your mic, JJ.
Work-life balance, I would say, hit me like a brick wall. I waited until my mid-30s to have kids, so I spent, the first 10 plus years running around the world, positioning new technologies and having a really full life. And then I found a great mate, and I said yes to a lot of big things like, yes, I'll marry you, and yes, we can reproduce. And it looked pretty easy. Everybody talked about it like, oh, having it all, anybody can do it. And shortly after having my second child, I found myself breaking down in ways I was not expecting. So I'd be unloading the dishwasher, thinking about the trip I had to take in the morning, and I could feel the tears running down my face. Or I was walking through an airport thinking I really would have liked to be home for an event that the kids had, but my flight was delayed and I missed my connection. I thought it was really, really hard. And I really, really thought I missed the cliff notes on how to keep this all going. I think for many women, we walk through life saying, oh, it's fine, it's fine. But the reality is that many of us women still do 80% of what's happening in the household. And then we're responsible for, ungodly amounts of NBOs at work. And even if you're lucky enough to have a team at home helping you, you still have to manage the team. And so I set out on a personal journey to figure out how the heck to keep this going. And that really was the basis for my first book, The Working Woman's GPS, When the Plan to Have It All Leads You Astray. And I found a lot of wisdom in women ahead of me, 5, 10, 15 years. And many of them talked about protecting your schedule, aligning to your best self. And even though I've read this in most of my 20s and most business self-help books, I still was struggling with the how. For me, I really, as an engineering mind, I want to know how to do it exactly. And so I embarked on some charts in my first book, and some I've carried over to my second book. And the chart that I really, really hold on to is the power of no. And I'm really specific about what is the commitment, who's asking me to do it, does it align to where I am or where I want to go? Do I have the right energy? Meaning, am I looking forward to this commitment? Is it something that excites me? Recognizing that all commitments are not going to excite you, but some of them are a stepping stone to where you're going to go next. And then finally, how much time does it take? Because things that take 20 minutes or 2 hours are much different for me than things that take 30 or 40 hours. And I'd just like to end with a quick story. And I think that for me, this has been pretty instrumental. When people ask me, hey, can you just do this? Or do you mind just doing that? I go through this chart in my head to make sure that it aligns to my goals, because I was so quick to say yes because I didn't want to hurt people's feelings, and I wanted people to like me, and I wanted them to think I was a doer. And so I really was saying yes for probably not the right reasons. And similar to what Kim said, as I got more confidence in the value that I delivered, and I started with small no's, I was able to then build up my confidence to really be specific on where I spend my time. And I have found that if I focus on fewer things, I'm actually more impactful. And so I'm happy to share some more about this in the Q&A at the end. But I really think for women, you have to take control of your schedule. And if you were like I was, where I didn't know how to do that, I have many, many articles on the power of no, and I find that it has given me a lot of personal and professional power to align to the right things. So as you can tell, I'm very passionate. My voice went up. I'm right in there with that question. But I think it's really important because for women, we get spread too thin too fast, and then we seem to dilute our impact value, which is super, super important for women, that they really align to things that they can be the most impactful. So with that, I know that we want to jump into challenges because, as we all know, these paths are not easy. Whether you're in the corporate life or you're an entrepreneur, there's challenges that happen every day. So Kim, I'd love for you to jump into some of the challenges you've experienced along the way and how you've adapted to make it more meaningful and really drive your outcomes.
Excellent, JJ. Thank you. So I'm going to share, this is a very personal challenge that I experienced in my own career, and this was a really deeply changing event for me in my life. At the time, I worked for the largest consulting firm in the world, and I was traveling back and forth from Colorado to New York every week working on a very large project, and we were working about 18-hour days. And we did that for a year. There was a team of us that was sent out there on this large change initiative to help turn the project around. It was having some significant challenges. And at the end of the year, I just wasn't feeling well. I knew something was wrong. I had kept going to the doctor, And the sum of that was at the end of this project, I went into the doctor and had some blood work done. And within 30 seconds, he looked at me and he said, Kim, you're never going to be able to have children. And this is 100% related to the fact that you have been under so much stress. And, obviously that was I wanted to have a whole baseball team of kids, right? And that was a huge moment for me. And I can remember vividly leaving that office. I was hysterical. And I got in the elevator, and a woman who I had no idea who she was, and I still don't know, put her arm around me and she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I'm not okay right now, but I know I will be." And one of the things that is so important for us in our careers is to always know, no matter what happens, that we're going to be okay. And to be okay being in that moment, whether it's a deeply personal thing or it's not, right? Because we go through both. But I think it's really important for us as women to acknowledge the deeply personal things that happen into our lives and then how we bring them into the office. Because we do, like what we just talked about with work-life balance, we can then tend to put ourselves in a mode, well, if I'd have done this, this wouldn't have happened. Well, it did happen. So the big influence that I had when I went back to the office, and this took me months to muster the courage to have a conversation with the partner that I worked most closely with. And I talked to her about, we've got to be more effective about caring for our people when we're working and the kinds of pressures we're putting on people. And that's our job as stewards, as leaders. And that's one thing I'd love to share with you as stewards and leaders of the people that work for you. It's our job to care for them. It's not our job to take on their stuff, but it's our job to be responsible to them. And her response to me is one of the reasons I am absolutely so passionate about the work that I do with leaders and with large change. She looked at me, she says, "Kim, there is nothing I can do to affect that." And in that moment, I honestly couldn't believe the answer I was hearing. And I said, "What do you mean there's nothing we can do to affect that? Of course we can affect that." And she said, "I can't affect that." And so I think as women, whether it's a deeply personal story like I experienced there or it's not, always looking at ourselves to say, we face challenges. Everybody in your office, you could walk down the row and think that person has a father with cancer. That person's dog passed away. That person is trying to figure out how they handle a big presentation today. This person just messed up in a meeting and they're beating themselves up for it. Whatever it is, we all need a little bit more compassion and support, but how we show up in those moments for people as leaders and how we become the stewards of service to the people working for us is so important. And one of the key philosophies that I not only live by, but run my business by, which to me is all the same thing, there is always opportunity and possibility in absolutely every situation that we face and every challenge that we face. And as a woman, and a woman in leadership roles, and I'm sure a lot of us on this call have experienced this, it is not uncommon for us to be the only woman in the room, the only woman at the table, the only woman in the board meeting. And know that that doesn't necessarily matter about how we show up. We don't have to let that affect us. We show up in our truth and our presence, and we fully contribute in every possibility and opportunity that we have to offer. So that's a deeply personal story, but it was so relevant to, really what I saw at that time and what I still see today as possibility and opportunity for us to show up as leaders. How about you, JJ?
Wow, Kim. Kim, that is deep. And, I think many of us can empathize with you because I think, so many of us drive so hard and, we try to time out things and sometimes timing doesn't work to our favor. So I can't imagine that was an easy time for you. And I'm sure you did find some people to support you in the organization. It's unfortunate that, sort of the person you thought was going to support you basically said, well, sorry, I can't help you so much. And I think for women, this happens a lot of times, right? When we are looking for somebody to lend an ear, make a phone call, even maybe push us in a new direction. Sometimes the people we depend on to do that because we've shown up for them so many times aren't necessarily going to be our sponsors for where we want to go next. And I think for challenges, as you mentioned, we're all going to have challenges personally, professionally. Many people on the call right now might have gotten a phone call or something's just happened this week. And I think with that, it's important to build a group of people around you that are going to help you in times of challenge. And I think whether you're an entrepreneur or you work in an organization, for many women, we are so busy doing the work. We're so busy moving through our to-do list that oftentimes we don't go to the lunch, or we can't get to the happy hour, or we, can't get away for the week. And in some circumstances, those are the times where real relationships are developed, whether it's a mentor who just gives you advice, or it's a sponsor that leverages their social capital to help you connect the dots. So that could be a phone call on your behalf. That could be sending an email, a LinkedIn connection, or even putting you on a short list for the next opportunity you're interested in. And I think the research shows, this was in the Eccentric Glass Ceiling article for women in IT, it talks about that women are very good at networking at the level in which they're at, and men are very good at networking at levels above them. And so for when women need help or need that special push, a lot of times their network consists of just the people at their level and maybe their direct report, but doesn't span across departments, groups, or projects. And so for many of us that experiencing challenges, it's the network that gets us through it. And I would encourage you listening to really think about who is in your network that you can call on today if something that you need help. What are the gaps in your network, and where do you really need to spend time to develop relationships that are going to help connect future dots for you? Because I know Kim and I could go through a series of career challenges, everything from not getting the job to not getting promoted to having to change locations and, decide whether or not you're going to pick up all your belongings and move to another city. And those are the times that you really depend on your network of people to sort of sort through the data and understand what are your options to make the next step. And I think for me, I could go into a lot of challenges, and there's a lot of things I discuss online about challenges, but I think what I decided, interestingly enough, when I decided to go off on my own, I did something very out of scope for myself. I was interested. I finally got to a senior level at a technology company in Palo Alto. I was super excited. There were very few women at the levels, but I was being pulled in a direction to go out and write another book and work with professional women to move through the org charts. And so I took a personal trip to Sedona by myself. I got my rent-a-car. I drove 2 hours from the Phoenix airport, and I sat down and did some energy and spiritual work to really understand, is it my heart or my head? Because my head's saying I'm absolutely crazy, and my heart is saying jump now. And so I think for many of us, sometimes we have to look at alternative ways to get information, and then also getting people around us to give us different perspectives. Sometimes we're so stuck in the same groups of people that when our heart tells us to do something different, all the people around us that know us the way we are right now say, no, don't go. You can't do it. You need the salary. You need this. And so really identifying different ways to get new information and new people in your network. And I'll just say that from that point, it took me 2.5 years to leave my position. So I put all the breadcrumb down. I worked on a lot of activities on the weekends and the evenings to solidify my revenue streams before I made the jump. And there's a lot of ways to be an entrepreneur, not just on your own. You can scoop into another existing organization, or you can go into a nonprofit. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about that at the end. So we're looking forward to your questions in the chat box. And I know I see a few already. So please let us know what you're thinking about as we continue to go through some of the Twitter feeds and some of the topics that have come in prior to this session. So with that, Kim, I'd love to talk a little bit about your experiences of becoming an entrepreneur, because as we all know, this is scary stuff, jumping into new opportunities, and now you become the HR department, the marketing, the sales department, the product team. So talk a little bit about, your thoughts and experiences of jumping into the world of entrepreneurship.
I would love to, and this fits well with one of the questions that came in about who we looked up to as a role model. So I'm going to go ahead and wind that in as well. So JJ, I love your approach to becoming an entrepreneur, and there's times that I thought it would have been a lot smarter if I did that. I took what I call the burn the ship strategy. I left my role as a CIO, which I know a lot of you recognize as a high-paying role, and burned the ships and began to build a business. And it is so true. I'd been in technology roles my entire career. I'd run gigantic change initiatives all the way to, 500-person technology departments with a $60 million budget. And that's what I knew. And when you become an entrepreneur, you become what I call the chief everything officer. That's what CEO really stands for when you become an entrepreneur. You become the chief everything officer. So whether you knew marketing or not, I didn't. As a technology career professional, I sure as heck didn't know anything about marketing myself, about really getting the right messaging. And at the time, starting a company, there's so many things you can grab onto. So I think what's really super important in the journey of becoming an entrepreneur is to really leverage not only what I call your warm network. So that is all the relationships that you've developed to date that are relationships that you know and trust, especially leveraging the people that you know well and that you've had really good trust relationships with and deep working relationships with. Start reaching out to them. Hey, this is what I'm doing now, and I would love your support. I'm just getting started. Don't be bashful about, number one, asking for help, and number two, here's right where I am, and here's the help I need. The other thing that I did that was really helpful was I created a little advisory board for myself of people who were already entrepreneurs, who had a level of success that was at least equal to my CIO salary. I think it's really important to, if you have advisors or mentors, to create a group of advisors or mentors who are ahead of you, who have walked the path before you. If they're so far ahead of you that either you can't relate to the advice they're offering, or they've forgotten what it's like to be walking in your moccasins, you might just want to reassess who is in that advisory board and at least get a combination of people that are at the mark you want to be at. Let's say you want to make either your first six figures as an entrepreneur or your first, 200,000. Get people that are in that range and create a little advisory board. The people that were role models for me, I am nerdy nutso about leadership. I am so nerdy nutso about leadership, culture change, the dynamics of human behavior inside leadership and culture change, and how we either are successful with big change or it fails, which it fails 70% of the time. So the people that I really looked to as role models were the people I'm like, who is already successful in my space? Who's doing it well? And I sought them out. Who has already figured out this entrepreneur thing, and I sought them out. The goofy thing that happened to me, which was so neat, was my path crossed with Jack Canfield, who is the Chicken Soup for the Soul author. He's since sold that company, but at the time when I was a CIO, we were creating an inspirational leadership series, and we had amazing people like Bob Proctor, Michael Beckwith, Byron Katie, Jack Canfield coming in, and I got to be like their anchor person in the audience and interact with them. Jack and I formed a relationship, and I ended up working on his team for about 7 years. And the thing I realized that I didn't realize when I was in corporate, that as an entrepreneur, and what I wish I'd have learned when I was in corporate, is the absolute importance of working on ourselves every single day. So what Jack taught me was, being a great leader, showing up, And even as an entrepreneur, we're all leaders, right? We're leading in our capacity. An entrepreneur is a leader. We've got to be working on ourselves every day, even if it's only 10 or 15 minutes. Carve out time. Les Brown talks about how he reads 30 pages a day in books. Find the people that are in your space. Find out who's great at that. Follow them. So those are a few of the things I did. And then seek out a mentor or an advisory group like I did who will mentor you and help you through those times, because the mind games of an entrepreneur, they're massive. So, and JJ, you might want to comment on that too, but I found that as an employee, I could go in, I could do my job. Some days I didn't fully show up. I wasn't in the game. Other days I was fully in the game. As an entrepreneur, you got to be in the game every day. And it's a different mind game. So you've got to really mentally work on yourself to show up. And having some mentors that help you do that will be huge. So what I do every day, I love mindvalley.com. They have great inner growth courses. I've learned meditation, and we'll talk about that later if we get to it, some personal practices. But I think the really important thing about moving into an entrepreneur is to learn how to be disciplined in yourself and align yourself with those mentors. So JJ, I'm going to hand the baton over to you on that one.
Great. Thank you so much, Kim. You know, I think entrepreneurship is so interesting because I think you have to start off with what business problem are you solving? And I'm not sure I was completely aligned when I started the mindset that I wanted to do something different. And I'm a big advocate for hiring coaches. I think I've hired probably 7 coaches in my career. And the beauty of having a coach, and this is something not a lot of women do, they don't invest in themselves to sort of get a crystallized path of where you want to go. And I really think that hiring a coach is a great way to start if you're thinking about adding additional impact in new ways, because it gives you dedicated time to really align to where you want to make an impact. And for many of us as an entrepreneur, it takes 2 to 3 years to really start making money. And so you have to financially prepare yourself to do that by, selling stock or saving money or using funds you have, but really preparing 24 months of funds when you take that step into full entrepreneurship. In fact, what I encourage for many women is write a business plan of what business problem are you solving and try to shop it around to people that could benefit from it. Oftentimes, I'm a really much bigger fan of intrapreneurship, where you're inside an organization and you're solving problems in the organization. And I've done this a couple times in my career where I saw an opportunity in the organization that wasn't currently being met or addressed. And I built a 2-page proposal of what the problem is, what was the impact to existing or new customers, what was the product alignment, what type of team did they need to support it, and what was the revenue or the investment. And I would actually go and socialize that around my existing organization to understand if this is a direction the company wanted to go, and if they've already thought about filling it, and if they have, I'm interested in potentially leading it. And so for many of you that see an opportunity in the 4 walls that you're working, it's very easy to put together proposals because, as Kim mentioned early on in the show, talent is hard to come by these days. And many organizations are really interested in retaining talent, especially if you've been there 2, 4, 6, 10 years. And you would be surprised how interested they would be in new opportunities or new solutions you could provide inside the enterprise. So I really would encourage you to think about where can you shop your idea underneath an existing LLC or 501c3 first, because entrepreneurship, although very rewarding in a lot of ways, can be very difficult because you have to do everything, as Kim mentioned. And I think that's a great opportunity for you potentially where you already are. And believe it or not, many organizations often tell me, and I'm sure they tell Kim, we would love more innovation. We would love more people to come up with ideas. So for many of us women that talk ourselves out of doing this because we don't think we're 100% prepared or we don't know all the answers, be assured they would much rather you come with a proposal that's half-baked than come with a resignation letter. So really think about what are problems I can solve? How can I solve them? And who would be interested in me solving them? And I think this is a great first step to being an entrepreneur. This could just get you more experience and exposure while you're on the corporate payroll of getting something off the ground. And I think as you continue to get things off the ground, you get more confidence so that in 2, 4, 6 years, you might want to go start something on your own. You're taking that expertise and experience and you're bringing it into something that maybe you own solely or you partner with. And so I think there are many forms of entrepreneurship. I really do think it starts with solving a real problem that people are willing to pay for. And I think if you want to even socialize some of your ideas, to even see if it's valid, socialize it with professional friends, maybe even some of the leaders, or you can leverage people in your network. And I know Kim and I know I didn't ask Kim, but I'm sure either one of us would be happy to talk with you about maybe something that you're looking to do to see where there might be a slot for you. So I encourage you to keep thinking about where you can solve problems, because you will be more marketable the more impact you can make by the problems that you solve. So with that, I think we've gotten a couple more questions that have come in.
JJ, your microphone is muted.
Oh, thanks. Okay, sorry about that. So one of the questions that came in on Twitter, so thanks for all of you for asking questions through Twitter. We'll be handling a few more of those. But as an entrepreneur, how comfortable must you be with failure? I think that failure is an everyday experience in entrepreneurship. You have to have thick skin, and you have to realize that oftentimes the way you think things are going to unfold rarely happen the way you think they're going to unfold. And so your level of perception of what failure is and how you're going to handle it is instrumental, because it's not a question of you're going to get knocked down, because you are going to get knocked down. You experience this in your corporate role every day, but it's more of how many times are you going to have the energy to get back up. And the people who can get back up and stay present, positive, and have the perseverance to move forward will eventually find the route that's going to sustain their business, whether that's inside or outside the organization. And if you feel like you need experience with more failure, I would encourage you to take on an opportunity in your current organization that scares you to death. Because the more you can get those experiences, the more successful you'll be as an entrepreneur. So Kim, if you want to kick off with that question and then maybe jump into embracing entrepreneurial spirit and great talent, as we've sort of addressed.
I will do that. I think the failure question is a great question. And I mentioned I work with companies going through large change. And in technology, we are all the center and hub of change, right? Whether it's in an engineering role or an IT role. And one of the absolute illusions in corporate America that I experienced was that we shouldn't fail. We have to fail. Innovation comes from failing. And as entrepreneurs, I agree with JJ. 80% of what we do is not going to work. And really what's important is that we let our commitment to what we're doing, and this is where I talked about calling earlier, our commitment drives us. My commitment drives me, not my confidence. There's days I don't feel confident. There's days where I just want to pull the covers over my head and stay in bed because I had a big failure the day before. We all have those feelings. It's not the feelings won't happen, it's how quickly we recover from them. And this is where getting disciplined about that is so important. So let your commitment drive you, not your confidence at times where you're feeling a lack of confidence. Stay committed and clear and focused, and that will help drive you through failure. But I absolutely want to invite all of you to reconsider how you embrace failure. From my perspective, there are no failures and there are no problems. There are opportunities and possibilities. So if we get the attitude of, okay, in this situation right now, something's not working, what's the opportunity and possibility right now? We get our minds there, both in our corporate jobs and as entrepreneurs, and we're going to see the world differently. We will affect things differently. And I agree with JJ. As entrepreneurs, one of the things my clients look for in their organizations, big organizations have become challenged with being flexible to change, and change is all over them right now. And what you can do in your own company is bring that entrepreneurial spirit into work. How do we innovate? What are the possibilities and opportunities in this right now? And how do we innovate through that? So I would invite all of you to be thinking that way now. How do we bring in more entrepreneurial spirit? And how do we embrace our failures along the way? Because they're what fuels innovation as an opportunity and possibility to get even better, to get tighter as a team, to revisit our vision and our purpose. And I'm looking at another couple of the Twitter questions. And again, send your questions into hashtag WeWednesday, W-I-E Wednesday. And one of the other questions I see on here is what has been the role of luck in our success? So let me address that real quick, JJ, and then I'll hand it over to you because I think this is a fairly quick response for me. I actually don't view luck as random. So what I believe positions us, whether we call it luck or not, is being strategic about where we are, who we show up in front of, and making sure that we stay focused, which is important in our roles at work as well. JJ talked earlier about, networking. Get into your network, learn who your network is, network upwards, downwards, in a hierarchical organization. What I notice in corporate that I have a conversation with my clients about frequently is people don't network outside of their job. And it's really important that we do that. So for me, luck is really about circumstances. And are we creating the circumstances that we're manifesting in our work and in our life? And as an entrepreneur, that's critical. While I wouldn't call it luck, I would call it planning. I'm always grateful when luck graces me and when unexpected things grace me. But when I really look at it, we set that up with our own energy. We set that up with our own manifestation of the actions that we're taking and how we're showing up in the world. And what I mean by that is, what is our energy? Are we hopeful? Are we high energy and optimistic? Are we lower energy, discouraged, disappointed, whatever it is? So I would look at that, and just in your normal day, see how changing your energy levels your luck. What about you, JJ? Do you want to take that one on?
Yes, I'll just say a moment of that, and then I'll jump on to the next question from Twitter. But people always ask me, well, what's the one thing? What's the one thing? And I always have to laugh because I always say there's never one thing. It's a series of small choices and actions each day that build momentum for us to leap. And I think that as we go through our workday, really thinking about what am I doing each day, and am I building a bridge from where I am to where I want to go next? And this takes time. It takes time and is really the basis for what I'm doing next, which the question of Twitter is, now that you've become a successful entrepreneur, what's next for the two of you? So I just finished my second book, Accelerate Your Impact. And it was a combination of research I did for 3 years of how to use action-based strategies to maneuver the professional landscape. And in doing so, I got a lot of great people to review the book. I've had it, edited several times in different ways. And I'm very excited that it just won the 2017 Business Book Award for Women by Axiom. And I am really hoping that it will continue this conversation not only to attract, but retain and advance women. And that's experienced women. I'm a big advocate for experienced women in STEM positions. NCWIT, IEEE talk a lot about the attrition rate of women after the age of 35, where we really start to think about, is this worth it? And my work of working with women, which has been the primary role for me for the last few years, has now dovetailed into working with first-time managers and executives. Because what I have learned is that you can prepare women as much as you want, but if you don't have managers, leaders, and executives part of the process where they're working on activities each day to create a culture that's engaging, helps women align to why their work matters, and gives them a path of where they want to go next. It's very difficult for women to justify at really instrumental times in their career if should they stay or should they leave. And so for those of you in corporate America that are thinking, I'm not sure if I want to do this or what is my next impact, I often suggest to look around your organization and find people that believe in diversity and that are fostering diversity on their team, because oftentimes those leaders are really fantastic to work for. And I encourage you to sort of work your way over to leaders that can really find value in diverse talent, diverse contributions, and diverse impact on the team. And I think for me, working in organizations to make these goals a reality is really important for all of us, because we all know that men and women look at things differently and that we need different people at the table to really foster the innovation and bottom line impact that many of these organizations are looking for. So I look forward to seeing many of you and discussing this further. And I think we have many more questions that have come in. So if you have some questions, we have just about 10 minutes left. So make sure you use the hashtag WeWednesday, WIE Wednesday. And Kim, I'm going to hand over to you to address one of the next questions.
Sounds great. I think I would also like to address the now that we become a successful entrepreneur, what is next for you? This is how I view the journey of an entrepreneur. We become entrepreneurs, and this has been true of primarily everybody I've talked to. We become entrepreneurs leaving our corporate roles because we have something that we deeply care about. We deeply want to bring to the world. I call it my calling. And so for me, what's next for me? Success of yesterday doesn't guarantee my success of today. And so I honestly don't lean on that. What I really look at is who needs what I have to offer. JJ talked about we've got to solve a business problem. We've also got, I'm going to add to that, we've got to solve a business problem. We've got to solve critical business problems. Disengagement is a huge issue. People are trying to address culture, and people don't understand what culture means. If you ask 20 people, you'd get 20 definitions. We know the way of leading isn't working because these numbers tell us that it's not working. Whether you look at the Conference Board, you look at Gallup's new report about the American workplace, the numbers are telling us from what people are saying, and these surveys have tens of thousands, if not in the case of Gallup, millions of people who have responded to their questions. And, the truth is there. We've got to look at our belief systems. So what's next for me? I'm really committed to a movement, creating a movement about how we lead. And what I really stand for, and I'll just put it out on the table right here, what I stand for is organizations who are evaluating and measuring their success and impact based on the triple bottom line. And what that is to me is we're looking at not only profit, because that's why businesses exist, at least that's their traditional perspective, but businesses need to make a profit to exist. But we're also measuring our impact, quote unquote, our success, by measures that include people. How satisfied are people? How are we caring for people? This includes people all the way through our channels, or if we're a distribution company, all the way through our distribution, whether it's the people making products, shipping products, buying products, on the phone with customer service, cleaning the office at night. We have got to stand for people. We have got to stand for our planet. If our planet isn't healthy, people, we don't have businesses, right? So people, planet, and profit is the triple bottom line. And what's next for me is elevating that movement to more and more companies. And just like any leader in any company who has an important message, all of us have a voice. Get out there and speak more, network, create groups of your own, write, whatever it is for you. But what's next is, for me, is really, okay, what are the things to elevate? And as an entrepreneur, this journey is like a ladder or a staircase. I always akin it to a staircase. I know the view from the stair I'm standing on, but when I walk up that next stair, that view is different. And then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, what do I do here? So as you elevate as a business owner, the challenges become different. Growing a team becomes a new opportunity and possibility. Your client base gets larger and their needs and diversity of their needs gets more significant. So what's next for me is really stepping into that movement and really asking myself, how do we take this to a broader level to serve more people? JJ, do you want to take the next question that's here? Or do you have something in closing that you would like to add?
Yeah, I would just, I think for many of us on the phone today, we all called in because we have something burning for us that the title, the description, maybe one of our profiles really excited you or interests you to join the call today. And I'm hoping that you just got a few nuggets you're going to walk away with. I think a few things that I have learned in the process that I would just like to close off with is that one, and I think the most important for me is staying true to who I am, is not compromising, things that are not aligned to the best version of myself. And I think over the years as a woman, I've become more confident in not only my ability, but also in my decision making. And I think that's the first thing, is just staying true to who you are. The second thing is you have to help people get from where you are to where you want to go. So people see you as a brand today. If you don't know your brand, ask people, what do you think of me? What do you think is my work? What do you think I offer? Really get an idea of where you're starting from. And then whether you're going to be an intrapreneur or an entrepreneur, really thinking about how you're going to take people in your current network and current relationships to move with you. And oftentimes you have to start becoming relevant in those ways before you jump. Because oftentimes people see you based on the work you do today and not based on the work that you want to do next. And so I think LinkedIn is a tremendous tool. I've used it many times in my career to rebrand myself, align myself with people that, as Kim mentioned, that are 5-10 years ahead of me, and even get access to data and information that wasn't readily available. And so I think LinkedIn for me is an absolutely instrumental tool. And for those of you that have a profile but haven't spent any time, or have, a profile that's only really helping you for where you are now, maybe not where you want to go, I have some great resources to connect you to if you need help with that. I think that's really important. And then the third thing for me, and, I was just with IBM yesterday and they said, what's the most important thing women need to do? What your professional goals are. And my answer was they need to find the right sponsors. And the sponsors, once again, is somebody who leverages their social capital to help open doors, make connections, and maybe even get you on short lists. Or for many of you that are thinking about starting a business, could even get you access to capital. And I think that people will then quickly ask me, well, how do I find my sponsor? Again, your sponsor is going to depend on where you desire to go next and what help you need. So as you think about, today and leaving this call, or maybe tonight, really getting some clarity on where you are and where you want to go. And if you feel like you're still don't have that clarity, I think it's important to think about investing in a coach, someone who's going to help you really lay down the path that will help you expedite the journey that you're burning to get to. So with that, I really want to thank everybody that's put the call together today, and Kim. And I know Kim has some great things she wants to end on. So I'm going to hand the call over to Kim, and I hope many of you will connect with us after this call. So thank you for your time.
It has been an honor to be with all of you today, and thank you to IEEE Women in Engineering International Leadership Conference for having us. JJ, it's been incredible to partner with you on this call. What a joy. And what I'd like to offer all of you, as JJ said, be true to yourself. That's just been one of the biggest lessons I've had as well, is being true to myself is where our soul's kingdom is. And as we move into that, just practice and exercise those muscles and trust yourself. What I'd like to leave on is not only thanking you so much for today, and JJ and I have exchanged our thank yous. This has been an incredible opportunity. We're going to be signing off, and the conversation is going to continue, as I mentioned at the beginning. So I'd like to remind you of that. You can join the Twitter chat using the hashtag WIE Wednesday. So again, that's WIEWEDNESDAY, or following that at WIEILC. So I hope all of you have an amazing day. Thank you again for the engaging questions and the engaging topic. We wish you all the best in your pursuits, and just know wherever you are, there is opportunity and possibility to contribute and to grow and to experience the entrepreneurial spirit that we've talked about today. So leverage right where you are and put that into practice. We thank you again, and have a great day, everybody.